Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, shills, desolate, search, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome. And today I want to do a video about an article that came out on Business Insider. And of course, there's rampant speculation that President Biden will be taken off the ticket. His issues are so obvious to everyone that even the liberal press can't ignore it. And I want to preface before I get into this a little bit. I've gotten comments from liberals who are crying about the fact that I'm attacking liberals in a lot of my videos. And I need to remind everyone that I could give a shit about Republicans or Democrats. The liberals and President Biden, they're in the big boy chair now. And frankly, the policies of the administration and the behavior of the base has been despicable, and they will rightly be attacked and criticized. And so I just want to preface with that. I also want to add that for those watching my channel, if you in my videos, if you have partisan affinity to either Democrats or Republicans, you're probably going to have a difficult time here because I'm going to be merciless with both sides. And in fact, for those of you who hate the right, I have an upcoming video on everything that's wrong with the Republican Party, and it will be a large piece because there's a lot that's wrong with the Republican Party. So any of you fierce independents out there, any of you out there who aren't party line drones, you're going to be very happy here indeed. But for everyone else, it's going to be difficult. And I realize it will make me unpopular. But as I said before, if I start getting popular, I'm doing something wrong. So anyway, let me get into this the Business Insider article because it talks about 7 Democrats that there's speculation that if Biden really can't run in November, they're going to have to replace him. And I've kind of thought for the last year or so that they were going to replace Biden because he's been a disaster from the beginning, both personally and politically and economically. And my speculation was that if the Democrats had any chance in the upcoming election, they would have to grab somebody that would really motivate the base. So I was thinking it would be either Hillary Clinton, even with all her baggage. The liberal base seems to still love her, which is amazing. And then I thought Michelle Obama. She would be a natural to step in. She would completely motivate the base and would actually have a chance against Trump in November. But let's get back to the 7 Democrats. It's so pathetic. This list, they're all losers, and they're all disasters. And it was just an amazing list to read. So let's get to it. Of course, the first one is Kamala Harris. She's been a disaster as a vice president. And if something should happen to Biden and she became president, this country would certainly be doomed. It seems like a lot of the base, both the left and right, kind of realizes she's a disaster. So at least that's hopeful. But then they have Kamala Harris, and they have Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom, as governor of California, has been one of the worst governors in the entire United States. And his only drawing power seems to be that women voters really respond to him because he's so hot. But a good example of the disastrous policies, I mean, I could do an hour-long video on Gavin Newsom and the disaster he's created in California. The latest one was legislation mandating that all restaurant workers, except of course the workers in his own restaurants, but all these and friends of his that have restaurants, but including the fast industry. Of course, the minimum wage was posted at, I think, at least $20. It might have been higher. But that's a good example of one of the flaws of liberal policies. Okay, well, yeah, I get it. People should make a living wage. But first of all, in fast food restaurants, traditionally, at least in my lifetime, those used to be entry-level jobs for young people. Of course, now we're at the point where fast food workers are generally like disenfranchised and the elderly. But they mandated this wage and with good intentions, give these people a living wage, and I totally grip that. But the fact is, the wages were raised in a time when fast food restaurants have raised their prices and basically blocked out a huge portion of their demographic from being able to afford their food. So now they're supposed to absorb the costs of this rise in labor. And of course, so good intentions as it was, 10,000 people have lost their jobs in restaurants in California since this legislation was enacted. So, the mediocrity of our leadership is astounding, both on the federal and the local and state level. Next one is Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan. Of course, she's a disaster. There's articles out there on she's the worst governor in America. And we have so many terrible governors that I can't really agree with the article. But one of the things, of course, about her was she was, like so many of our governors and elites, she was a total hypocrite on lockdowns. So she mandated strong lockdown protocols in her state, in Michigan. And then, of course, those laws didn't apply to her at all. She was caught on many occasions, quite the scandals about her ignoring all the protocols and enjoying the big life. So then there's Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, and of course she's a disaster. She had one good idea in legislation. She tried to instigate a constitutional amendment overturning Citizens United. Of course, Citizens United was the law created that gave corporations the same rights as individuals in order to contribute to political campaigns, which of course is a ridiculous idea. And of course, I love the irony of federal legislation. They call it Citizens United, and it had nothing to do with citizens. It's Corporations United. And of course, one of her scandals is she had the highest turnover rate in Congress on her staff from 2001 to 2006, the highest turnover rate. And lots of stories came out about her abuses to her staff. And she also has some other ideas that I'm against. She's totally against free community college. And even though I'm an independent and I lean to certain conservative and libertarian policies, and it would be incredibly expensive, I like the idea, the equalizer of providing free community college. If you want to serve hardworking Americans and the disenfranchised and underserved communities, I think free community college is a great idea. And then, of course, another irony about Amy Klobuchar is that she, all during the Trump administration, she complained about the mountain of debt created by Trump. And of course, the mountain of debt the Biden administration has created dwarfs anything Trump could have ever imagined. But of course, she's fine with that. Then we have Cory Booker, the senator from New Jersey. He's now got a podium in Congress, and we see him regularly. And he's proven to be totally clueless. And he has proven that he's actually kind of a closet Republican, because his allegiances are to Wall Street and Silicon Valley, and he firmly believes in the so-called private corporate partnership to solve problems, which is a real problem. And then there's a little bit of a scandal because he became a multimillionaire overnight. He's worth $5 million now, involved in a web video startup called Waywire. And he would have had a lot of problems with that if he'd made that money while he was in the Senate. And then once again, like so many of these others, there's articles that come out and said he's the worst senator in New Jersey history. And so not a good candidate either. People, especially liberals, will respond to the fact that he's black, and that will be enough to give him some legs. But certainly once he comes out and discusses his policy, he'll be a disaster. So, this whole list is like none of these people could possibly win against Trump. And but this is who they're considering. This is who they're trotting out. Astonishing that these are the front runners. Then we have Roy Cooper from North Carolina, and Governor Roy Cooper, and like all the rest of these, there's articles out there saying that he's the worst governor in America right now. And I haven't seen all the evidence, but there's some things that he has no accomplishments, although he keeps getting reelected, and he's failed so miserably that a lot of the legislators and offices in North Carolina have actually turned Republican. But he's still a Democrat. He's still running the state. One of the worst things about him is he had some of the most strict COVID lockdowns in the country. And of course, like all the other ones, all those restrictions applied to the population, but not him. He lived large all during the COVID lockdowns. And I'm going to be doing a video on how the entire COVID narrative is collapsing. And so he's going to have even more mud on his face trying to defend his COVID lockdowns. And then one of the topics that always comes up is about, how the Republicans do all this gerrymandering and redraw districts in order to bolster their election chances. And I hate to tell you this, but the liberals and the conservatives both do that. They do it all the time in every state. And Roy Cooper is one of those ones that did a lot of gerrymandering to exclude black voters in North Carolina. And once again, here's somebody who's supposed to be a champion for liberal causes, and yet he disenfranchised black voters in his own state. So another total disaster. Then the last one is Wes Moore from Maryland, and Wes Moore paid $1 million. He's got some skeletons in his closet. He was ironically paid $1 million a year to run an anti-poverty organization. So while he supposedly runs an organization that's supposed to address poverty, he's making $1 million a year. And there's a great story that came out that talked about how an assistant of his asked for overtime because she was doing all kinds of personal favors for him. And she was booking his nanny's plane tickets and arranging his paid speaking engagements. And of course, for complaining, she got fired. So anyway, there's just a quick rundown. I can't really add to what I've said. I mean, just what a roster of losers. And if that's all the Democratic Party has, they're doomed. And once again, to show that I pick on both sides, of course, a roster of Republican candidates other than Trump right now would also be a bunch of losers and a total disaster. That's just the mediocrity of the leadership we have now, and political careers that attract people who want to get on the government gravy train and then never leave. And then also they're always uninformed on any of the issues. It's astounding. And so that's where we are in America. It's sad to say. It seems like at least, in my early years in the 60s and 70s, there was a lot of quality candidates. It didn't matter whether you were left or right. At least these people had some experience. They didn't have that many skeletons in the closets, although they always do. And at least the leadership seemed to have some kind of quality, but not in this age of mediocrity. And not only that, we live in a country where the mediocre get rewarded, and our government is a prime example of that. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.